Welcome to A Learner's Journey. My name is Molly Sanders, and the goal of this podcast is to inspire and motivate you by connecting you with a variety of passionate horsewomen and men who have dedicated their lives to helping horses and their people. I'm grateful you're here. Well, this episode has been a long time coming. The conversation that you're going to hear today was recorded back in October of last year. And then soon after that, I put the podcast on pause, as many of you know, for family health reasons. So I'm back. The podcast is back, and I'm excited to share this conversation with you. You're going to hear from a special man named Rodolfo Lara from Vaquero Horsemanship through classical riding. I met Rodolfo virtually through Lalon Romy. She contacted me after she'd taken a clinic with him and was like, "You've got to talk to this guy. He'd be great for the podcast." And she was totally right. So you're going to get to hear a really different perspective on horses and some things that I think will resonate with you and you'll be able to take into your journey and put into effect today. So thank you for being here, and let's get to the conversation. One of the questions I love to start with is about how you got involved with horses. So how did it all start?
How did it all start? It was very unconsciously after I got out of the military. I've always had a love for horses since childhood, but I really got when I was in the military, I wanted to come back home or go back home and have myself a horse so I could go out and ride and unconsciously, subconsciously, I was trying to unwind all the military experiences, negative ones. So that was my main thing. Actually, before the horses, I wanted to be a bull rider, bronc rider because the adrenaline factor. I
Interesting.
was not gonna get that at home, and I wanted, since I was in the military, to be a bronc rider, bull rider ever since I was a little boy, and that was the way that I really got uh, around horses, and I've always wanted a horse. So it was a mixture of things. It was the adrenaline and the freedom. No, I wanted the freedom of many things, but that was my main how I got involved with horses. Yeah.
Interesting. So you mentioned that you were always interested in horses since you were a kid, but were you able to be around them before you went into the military, or was that just after?
No, I was my family, my father in Mexico and my father's family, they were from a place where they had it was a farming community, but they did have some horses. And growing up with the culture, the music, the movies, my great grandmother, they had a place out in the northern Mexico, and I visited, and I got a chance to ride as a boy, out there, and that was a going back to my childhood with
That's
my with my
wonderful.
from my family.
That's wonderful. So when you were in the military and you knew that, like you said, it was kind of a subconscious thing that you had a feeling that horses were going to give you the freedom and probably the healing that you needed.
Yes.
And um, did the memories of childhood, did those come up, or was it just you just knew that you wanted to be around horses?
Um, they say horses always find you, and I think I always felt that I was going to be around horses somehow in my life. But yes, that was I don't know. I always had the feeling that I was going to be around horses. I didn't know, it would never had crossed my mind what I would be doing in at this time in my life, which I love. But I just wanted to be around horses.
That's
for
great.
myself, uh, for my joy, for my freedom, for just to be around horses and riding.
Right.
Like any uh, child that wants to be around horses, that's what I wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how did you end up like so you grew up in Mexico and then when you went into the military, was that in Mexico or was that
Oh,
in the
no, ma'am.
state?
No, 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 no. I was, I was born in Juarez, Mexico, and a border town with El Paso, and I only lived there till I was about 7 years old, and my family moved to my we came to the U.S. I was at an early age, and we ended up in Santa Ana, California, in Garden Grove area. So I mean, it was very hard as a to go or be around horses. So, but I always wanted to be, and I always, when I was a little boy, I would say, "Oh, when I grow up, I'm gonna have a farm, and I'm gonna have horses, and I'm gonna have cattle." And even though I lived in California and in that area, it was always inside me. It was always part of me.
That's really
It
cool.
always has been.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think
And
the more people that I talk to, the more I find that is a common ingredient that it's almost something that it's just born into us. And it's like a seed that's planted early and some people like for you, it didn't come into fruition until later in life, but it was always there, like, growing. And so that's really great. Um, so how old were you when you went into the military?
okay, I was we went back to Mexico and then back to California. So I was 19 years old when I joined. I was
So,
actually not 18, and I was in boot camp around
okay,
19
so
years old.
so young, a typical age, right? But it just,
Yes, yes. That's
yeah,
around the average age of the men and women that join the military. They're still, we're still kids.
right, right,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then how long were you serving?
I served 8 years altogether.
Wow.
Okay, and I joined the Navy as a Navy corpsman. That's equivalent to a combat medic, and I I joined the Navy, and I realized that I I really didn't want to be in the ocean on on a ship, and I realized that being a combat corpsman, a corpsman, I could be attached with the Marines. And as soon as I got out of uh, the corpsman school, the medic school, I went straight into what it's called 8404 Field Combat Medic, FMSS, Field Medical Service Support. So I went ahead and did that, and to be ready and able to serve with the Marines. And of course, the first uh, Desert Shield, Desert Storm came up during my uh, basically when I got out of field combat school, and I went ahead and got called to go to Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you for your service. And I mean, we don't have to go into what happened, but I know that that was not an easy time. And so let's jump into like when you got back. It's a little bit of, well, not even a little bit. It's a lot of culture shock, right? Coming back into civilian life.
Oh
And
yes, I was yes.
yeah, and how did the horse part of it, how did that come to be? Did you buy one right out of the gates or how did you?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Just to share a little bit about the experience, I was telling my friends here in Reno as I was driving back from California that it took me an hour and a half to come down from the plane down to where my family was waiting because I was just I didn't want to come down and meet them. I wanted to be home, but I I was it was difficult. So um, I probably bought my first. It was a mare by the name of Seven. She was a sorrel mare, beautiful, beautiful. I owe everything to that mare.
Uh-huh.
And I must have third month between the first 3 months, I already had my first horse coming back.
Wow.
Yeah, very unconsciously, subconscious. I had she taught me so much.
Right. And what
Yeah.
what was that like? Did you get support right out of the gates, or were you just, trying it, experimenting on your own?
No, well, no, no help. Everything, poor little Seven. Bless her. It was a lot of basically my dad. My father would help me, and but everything it was just her and I. Bless her heart. She tolerated so much with me, but she gave me so much.
Is there anything that stands out with Seven that, like, that she taught you or that she helped you with?
Well, first of all, I didn't know this. I came to realize how much she was helping me, but just brushing her,
Hmm.
grooming her, it it grounded me. It helped me ground myself, and everything else didn't matter.
Right.
It didn't matter what my thought before I went out and haltered her up, and as soon as I touched her, it was healing, and I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but she was grounding me, and uh, when a person asked me uh, what I thought about a horse, I go, well, they've been my medicine, they've been my therapy,
Yeah.
and all you have to do is just put your hand or be around the horse, or if you put your hands on one and just put them there, it's healing. That's what it's been to me.
Yeah.
They every time that I'm around the horse, every time that I'm helping a student, they're helping me.
Right.
Okay, the horses and the students.
Right. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's a wonderful thing. So I've been reading Dr. Susan Fay's book, and I can't think of the name of it right now. Um, I just got it, and she talks about that our our hearts and our brains both, give out energy, and that horses, because of their herd nature, are just they're amazing at matching that energy, and that we can also match theirs. So if you have a horse that is really calm, like maybe Seven was, that if we're around them, we can pick up on that energy and they can help us calm down. And then vice versa, if you have a horse that's really anxious, and we're really calm, it can help them to calm down because we match energy. Does that sound about
That
like what was happening for
Yes,
you?
ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. And you know, I can talk about this now, but knowing that I have PTSD, I didn't know this at that time,
Right.
and I didn't find out till almost 15 years after I got out of the military
Wow.
that I had PTSD,
Right.
and pretty bad one. I mean, it doesn't matter. PTSD is you have it, or you have it,
Right.
and but the degree of how they help you ground yourself and put you in the moment is takes you away from all those other memories,
Hmm.
and they're all every memory is going to stay with us, but at that moment, they help you understand yourself a little bit more if we allow them to.
Right.
If we allow ourselves and we open ourselves and we open our heart to that.
Yeah.
If not, it doesn't work. But
Right.
you're right. If somebody in there, they might think that uh, we're very tough, and we walk into and we have a at that moment, if I walked in and I saw a intimidating horse, you know what? It would help me ground myself, and it would say, well, you better think about what your next move is going to be, or something might happen. So
Right.
even at that moment, they help us ground ourselves.
Right, because we have to be present. We can't be thinking about other things if we've got a horse in our midst that is uh, really worked up. Or is that about what you're
Yes,
thinking? Or
horses live
yeah,
the moment. Horses live the now.
right,
Horses live about, and I don't think I have to go too much into this, but horses don't think about 5 steps from now. They think about the step that's about to happen,
right,
and about the moment, and that's how they help us.
right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool. So, how did you get from 7 to where you are now? When did it start to become something that you wanted to do professionally?
Okay, when I started getting hurt a lot,
Ah.
when I started unconsciously, I was, at the same time, I was feeling things that felt really good,
Mhm.
but everything, just like you and I are here right now, um, we have to open our eyes and allow that to happen. And uh, just like horses find us, there's people that come into our lives that we have to that, that we have to keep our eyes and our mind open to see how we can learn from them and grow from them. And I was, I liked riding horses, and I I started off, like I said, bull riding first. I wasn't very good at it, so I went on to bronc riding, and I was a little bit better. But you know
Uh-huh.
what? I started to a little bit older for that type of sport, and again, it was I got more joy out of riding a horse and trying to. In my mind, I thought it was teaching a horse something. Little that I know that each horse was teaching me something,
Right.
and but it felt good. And there was a lady by the name of Carla Klauser, I believe, and she came to me and she asked me if I wanted to start a horse for her. That she needed to get to a certain place to show,
Uh-huh.
and she asked me to, review a program for her because she wanted her developed through that program. And I got invited to from her to trailer her out to Albuquerque because that's where she was going to test. And I came upon one of the people that have been my I have to say mentors, or that I've um, been able to learn from them, and which is Dennis Reese. I went ahead and went up and did his tour stop, and things are meant to happen. We just have to have an open mind.
Mhm.
And I was at that moment, she was supposed to get a hotel for me that night, and she didn't. And I ended up staying in the living quarters, and it was snowing, it was cold.
Oh
She
no.
had given me tickets to go inside to the show, or to the tour stop, and it was 32 degrees outside. So I said, well, I'm gonna go inside and see what, at least warm up,
Right.
and he was doing his tour stop. Things happen. uh Life and horses go hand in hand, and it's timing and feel, and the timing and the feel have to be there. If we catch things at the right time and it feels good, we grow from that, and we want to go there again.
Mhm.
If if we miss the timing, we're gonna have to wait for a whole other cycle for that timing to be there for us to so it can feel right again, so we can grow from there. And uh, I the first time I came around what we call now natural horsemanship, it was a gentleman. I'm not gonna say names, but I turned on the TV, and I had just gotten out of the military. I had my horse seven, but I turned on the television, and the thing that I was watching on television, I thought it didn't make sense to me because it wasn't the right time and it wasn't the right feel. I was not ready for it.
Okay.
It's when we're ready for it. I wasn't ready for it.
Right.
And I switched the channel.
Right.
I tell myself, but we can't dwell on this. I tell myself, what would have happened if I would have kept that and just waited a little bit longer to see what it was about instead of prejudging. And that's another beautiful thing. Horses don't uh, we might touch up a little bit on this, but I prejudged and switched the channel.
Right.
So I had to wait 5, 6 years for that cycle to come back around. And when I went into the arena in Albuquerque, as I'm walking in, this guy was doing a cold starting. Dennis was doing a
Mhm.
cold starting. And at that moment, it was the right time for me I was ready for that part.
Right.
And I sat down, and that caught my attention right away. So I sat down and I started watching him, um, playing with this horse, at, working with this horse, a colt. And he was doing the things that I was doing back home, but he was giving me answers to the whys.
Ah,
Why it felt good. Why, oh, okay. Without, I was just watching, observing. I did not leave that arena until the end of the weekend. And that changed. That was a changing moment for me.
yeah.
At that moment, that was a big, big moment for me. And it changed my way of looking at horsemanship, and it made me want to grow and learn. And every morning I wanted to wake up and learn something new, something new. And from there, that was one of the big moments for me.
That's wonderful. And I love how you talked about the timing and the feel and the way you gave that example of sitting and having that program on the TV and you weren't ready, you know, and so you turned the channel. But when you saw Dennis presenting this colt start, it was it was the perfect timing. You were ready. You had enough knowledge. You'd been out there trying things that you were ready. And
And it was. I'll give you another little bit more of that weekend.
mhm,
I oh, as a boy, I just got mesmerized when I saw, there was a, a an actor singer that I admired so much, and he rode horses and he did some um, uh, advanced moves on his horses, and I love that. And then I also loved watching the dressage riders. I just, to me, it was something magical. Even as a little boy,
mhm.
I liked that. I liked the how I saw that they had that partnership, and I just enjoyed that. And I said, I want to do that. And I used to grab my broom, my mom's broom, and my mom would say, okay, dance. And I would, as a little 4-year old too, I remember this. I remember dancing for her with the broom, and I would be doing what I didn't know, it was a pee off back then, and I would brace my legs, and I would do that as a little boy.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know that. So I guess now they will.
Yes, they
But
will. Yeah.
as a little as a little boy, I used to grab my mom's broom, and she would say, "Well, dance," and I would start, prancing around the kitchen
That's
doing
great.
these moves. And anyways, what was magical for me? I thought it was magic, and it is. It is magic. It is a more, not magic. It's to me, I was just mesmerized when Dennis went ahead and did the Liberty work throughout that weekend. When
Mhm.
I saw him ask that horse to leg yield. I didn't know what a leg yield was. When I saw him do a leg yield at Liberty on the ground, like this guy is magical. He's doing some cool stuff out there. When I saw him round penning, and then it just blew my mind that he got on the horse and started riding bridleless.
Hmm.
And I said, I want to learn how to do this. And then he took it a little bit step further, and he started doing more advanced classical moves on a different horse that he had. And I say, oh, I definitely want to stick around and watch more because I wanted all of that. I
Yeah.
want all of that now.
Right.
But I realized that day by day it wasn't about our time. It's about developing, educating ourselves, writing, learning, having that relationship. And it was going to be what I realize now, that it's going to be a lifetime journey for us uh, to barely get to the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And we're probably got, like many have said, we're going to need a couple of lifetimes to reach a little bit of the understanding, because every day I realize that there's so much that horses have to teach us.
Yeah.
Yeah, about
Yeah.
everything, about life,
Absolutely.
about uh, understanding us before we can go and well, it's practice.
Right.
Practice, practice, practice. But they bring balance to me. They
Hmm.
bring balance to my life.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's wonderful. So did you continue with Dennis? Did you go and do more
did
clinics and
for it was it happened very quick. From a year from that, I was already an instructor for him, and
wow.
I went ahead and taught his uh, through his program
Hmm.
for about a year or two, and then I said, uh, thank you for everything, um, and we have to keep going forward. And I started looking for other writers that I could grow from this found beautiful foundation that I got, because I took the time to understand um, the horse and myself, and from that point I started saying I want a little bit more, and I want a little bit more, and
Right.
I'm gonna buy some books. And I think each person, the nature is beautiful, and the universe is beautiful, and we have a rainbow, and the rainbow has different colors for us to pick the one that we like the most. And the horsemanship is that way. There's different colors out there, and we're gonna pick the one that we can relate the best to.
Right.
And they're all the same. They're all go back. If you mix them all up, we
Uh-huh.
get one color,
Uh-huh.
but we relate to an individual one, and that's with clinicians and programs out there. People are gonna uh, have affinity to the ones that they can relate to,
Right.
it's that's how I've looked at it. Just keep growing and growing
Yeah.
and growing and growing.
Yeah, I like that. That's a neat way of looking at it. So with that rainbow idea, would you consider like your time with Dennis was one color and then you were drawn to another, you wanted, like you said, you wanted to keep growing, you wanted to keep exploring, so you found a different color
Within the same rainbow.
within the same rainbow?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
when we have problems, and that's when we can run into we confuse ourselves, therefore our horse gets confused when we start trying to mix foundations of
Right.
horsemanship, because you have to follow your foundation, and from there you can grow. And there's many clinicians or that follow the same foundation that we are, and
Right.
we're just growing from each one.
Right, right. That's really good. I was talking to another person that became a mentor of mine, a fellow named Charlie Snell, and he's been around horses his whole life, and he's in his 70s now, and just a gem of a human. And he was saying to me, I was interviewing him, and he was saying, I don't care who it is, but stick with somebody and build that foundation first, and then go and, explore. And then you can always, you're kind of adding on to that foundation. But like you said, if you're taking a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here, and you're trying to build a foundation, it can be really confusing and rocky, and it's not going to be a stable thing that you can build on. So yeah, that's really good. So, it's interesting to be talking to you, because I don't know a whole lot about you. I'm learning as you're sharing with me, but Lalon Romy is who introduced the two of us, you and I, and she reached out to me and just said, "Oh, you've got to talk to this guy." And she'd just done a clinic with you, and she really enjoyed it. And so what would you how would you describe what you're doing now? What kind of horsemanship are you teaching now?
Well, you know, first and foremost, I'm just trying to, every clinic that I go out and present, I say, this is a communications class. Every clinic that I share, that's how I start my clinics.
Mm-hmm.
I go, this is a communications class. We're going to develop a vocabulary that your horse is familiar with, and by understanding your horse and horses in general, that we're going to build a vocabulary. We're going to start off by trying to develop on how we hold a pencil before we are able to write a letter,
Mm-hmm.
before we're able to write a word, a sentence, a paragraph, and then maybe we can write a novel later on if
Mm-hmm.
we take the time to practice, practice, practice. And to me, it's very important that we develop that part of the relationship, the clear communications class.
Right.
And the most important part of that communication is being able to listen to ourselves. If we can't, with very simple thing, one thing that we forget, and I've been trying to share that throughout this little, between California and this last month, is that we sometimes forget the simplest things in life. And what is the first thing that we do when we're born? And what's the last thing we do before we pass?
I would say breathing.
We breathing,
Mm-hmm.
breathing, and we take that so much. We neglect that so much when we're riding.
So tell me
We,
more about that.
ma'am, we forget so much about that. In order for us to help our horse out, we have to be aware of where we're at in our breathing.
Hmm.
Okay, how are we breathing? Um, Society, the military, they erase how we are naturally supposed to breathe, with this, through the tummy, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And when we ride, we forget about that. And if we can't control our breathing, our heart rate is going to go up, our emotions are going to go up. But if we're able to feel ourselves breathing and go back to what is one of the first thing that we do, I tell my students, before you start riding, focus on your breathing. Okay. And then once you focus on your breathing, if it's a little bit fast, see if you can slow it down. Just like people that do yoga, that's the thing that they do. At that moment, see if you can feel your horse breathing. If not,
Mhm.
don't worry about it. But be aware of what your horse starts doing after you start focusing on your breathing. And most horses, I've seen them, as the rider is walking and focusing on the breathing, the horse starts to drop its head and lengthen, because we just started focusing on us. And before
Interesting.
we're able to help our horse, we have to be able to help ourselves first.
Interesting. That's so good. That's so
And
good.
going
So,
back to Lolano, I have so much respect, and just having met her for over that weekend in Utah. I have so much respect and admiration, and she's a beautiful, wonderful clinician, just by the ability of going and doing the clinic. That's one thing I do. We have to be able to put ourselves as a student first before we're able to go out and grow from that. And if we can't do that, we have to go back, in my respects and my admiration, and to Lalonde. She's a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful writer.
Yeah.
I'm so much admiration.
Yeah, that's really cool. So with the breathing, like you said that often the things that we do in our lives, the stress that we are under, we lose connection with how to breathe. So, and you mentioned like in through the nose, out through the mouth. So how do you coach people? Like, is that what you coach people to do? In through the nose, out through the mouth?
Basically,
Okay.
I've taken some Pilates classes because, as I started having problems from the military and things like that with my back and pain, I wanted help, and I one of the things that I reached out to was yoga and Pilates,
Mhm.
and I I went ahead and focus on those simple things. And as the rider is going, I mean, there is no reason why we cannot focus on our breathing while we're warming up our horse or walking our horse.
Right.
And it helps so much. You know, if we can ground ourselves at that moment, if our horse starts getting a little bit nervous, our emotions, we're teaching ourselves to gather our emotions. One of the things that I say, well, a lot of people want collection. I go, but collection is very and we can, that's a topic by itself for days and days. And what is that? Well, we have to collect our emotions, we have to collect our horse's emotions and things like that. The first thing that we need to is our breathing,
Hmm.
and then we can help our horse out through something. And if we keep ourselves calm, chances are that if we're doing our preparation work, if we're doing our foundation, and if we work on our breathing on the ground, it's much easier. I do this a lot when I'm doing uh, my ground school, and my horse is relaxing because I have relaxed. It just blow out, and my horse blows out. And if there's that partnership on the ground, if there's that, it's easier for me to transfer it to myself when I'm writing. It's
Okay.
about our, it's about us.
Yeah, that's really great because I'm thinking, people that are listening to this or watching it are going to want to try this, once they're done and they go out with their
Just
horse.
breathe.
Okay, so you're not saying like there's kind of a way that you need to do it. It's just more about doing it and being aware of your breath and being aware of what happens with your horse.
Yes, and the one thing is that we cannot be breathing so much with our chest. We
Ah,
have to breathe through our belly, because if we start breathing through our chest, we tense up, and our seat tenses up, and we get heavy, and our horse gets heavy on the forehand. There's
okay.
moments that we need to build ourselves up, but we need to build ourselves up, and our intention has to be with us relaxed, because our horse needs to follow our lead, and have a different intention, but relaxed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's really good. So when you're breathing in through your nose, you're thinking about expanding your belly,
Yes.
and then when you breathe out through your mouth,
Yeah.
your belly is relaxing and the air is coming out.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
helpful. I mean, I think you're right in that a lot of us lose connection with how we're breathing, and then if we start to focus on it, relearning that, like we kind of need to know, because I'd probably go out there and just breathe with my chest and go, okay, cool, I got this breathing thing, but that there's a even better way to do it.
That was a very hard thing for me to undo, or try to relearn, because through when I used to box, when I used to everything that we do in life is preparing us to understand our horse better. One of the biggest thing that I'm gonna say the PTSD has helped me understand my horses better and help them out through some things because I can pick up on a couple of things, but just being able to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really cool. So Lalon wanted me to make sure and ask you about horse in hand
Horse in
and
hand.
what that is and what you could share with us about that.
Well, a very easy way to I don't know. It's we can get as deep as we want to, and I ask my students, what does horse in hand uh, mean to you? That's an old term. No, horse in hand. It comes from Europe, from the Spaniards, from back even more. But it was used and it's used a lot in Spain and Portugal and places like this. And if I would ask you, what would that mean to you, horse in hand?
I would think that it's probably what when you're on the ground with a line in your hand, a rope in your hand, and trying to communicate with your horse through your rope.
Yes, that's a beautiful way of putting it. That's one way of describing it. But if um, we take a marble block and we uh, put our hand on it and we roll it around the table, um, it's not gonna flow very easy.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go out and start rounding the corners and polishing it up and smoothing it out every, a little bit at a time. Because if we don't do it with softness and smooth it out, and if we try to compress, it would always have linear. It will always gonna have angles, and it's never gonna follow our hand. But if we take the time to smooth things out, and I I create a sphere or I develop a sphere and I put it on a table and I follow it with my hand. I mean, if I roll my hand across it, it's gonna follow my hand. Okay. So now let's take our horses and our horsemanship on ourselves. We're talking about ourselves, and we start educating ourselves, and we start practicing, and we start doing things and understanding our horse. That's where it all starts. But it'll be your horse's feet. You're gonna ask them emotions, the feet, the emotions, the body, the everything. Everything comes into hand. Um, how far we take it, and it's my horse's feet. I'm gonna ask my horse to place his feet a certain way at a certain time at a degree of how much I want it. So it's a lot of things. It's so many things. It's emotions. It's the feet. And I was just asking the. I'm sorry, I had to move my phone a
That's
little bit.
okay.
So it's being able to place your horse's feet somewhere where you need them at the time you need them, at the moment you need them, in a way that you need them, and your horse will follow that because you've taken the time to develop yourself in him and you become one with your you become the centaurs that we the mythological
Mm-hmm.
that we become one with our horse. So there's so many things. It's the groundwork, the riding, the horse in hand. It's so much. I don't know if I was able to explain that,
I think
but
so. So what I'm hearing you say is that the horse in hand is like that granite or marble that's been smoothed out and it's the sphere. So the
yes,
horse in hand is when you have so the block would be where you start when you're not educated, where you don't have any
yes,
experience yet. So everything's a little bit hard, but as you start to learn, it starts to round the edges.
yes, ma'am, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And then as you start to get even better, you're able to be very clear in your communication, and you're able to ask your horse to place its feet wherever you want them, whenever you want them, and they're there with you. Is that
Yes, how you need them, when you need them, at the
okay?
time that you need them, and your horse will not. There won't be a struggle because it's a clear communication, and uh, you become. Uh, I don't want to sound, but it's one.
Right,
It's a partnership.
right.
It's a partnership, and
Yeah,
horse in hand. If it's not built on trust, if it's not developed through the trust, and my horse, it doesn't become my horse's idea to be with me. See what I'm going? If my horse is, if I didn't take the time to develop the trust and I was unfair to my horse is not gonna want to be with me. He's not gonna want to be in my hand.
right,
He's gonna want to go away from my hand.
right,
He's gonna always want to flee me or
right,
go away from me. But on the other hand, he's wherever he's gonna want to be with me because it's built on trust.
right. That's
Yeah,
really good, and I'm understanding what you're talking about, and also the level of achievement that it takes to get
yeah.
to that place where you've developed yourself to a point where your horse does want to be with you, does want to do the things that you're asking. That's a that's a lot of development.
That is a lot of development, and
Yeah,
it's a journey. It's a lifetime journey. It's a way of living. It's a way of looking at life. It's a way of feeling life. It's a way of feeling horsemanship.
yeah,
It's so much. I say it could be so deep as we wanted to, as deep as we wanted to, and at the same time, it's a very it's not simple, but if we develop the communication, the trust, and our horse loves to be with us, and it becomes their idea, it's a beautiful thing.
yeah, yeah. That's great. So recently, I saw a video of you riding, and you were riding. I believe you were riding with the Garacha pole.
The garrocha, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Garocha,
Garrocha.
Garocha.
Yes,
uh, so, is that something that you enjoy teaching?
yes, I do. I do. It's something that it's people are following it, people are enjoying it, people love it, and I been using it to help my students out. And since they love to write to the music, and I love to write to music, when I'm home, my first thing I do is I put some calming music on before I go get my horse. And, all the time that I'm out there with my horse, I have music going. And, that's part of riding with a garrocha. It's like riding in a dressage court. It's a tool to help us develop ourselves, and therefore we can help our horse ride. And it's a great tool. It first of all, it takes the focus of the micromanaging of the
Yes.
hands. Okay, but we have to have some found we have to have the foundation down to be able to understand that we start out riding two-handed, so we can ride uh, basically with bridleless.
Hmm.
We could still have our bridle. I don't want people to misunderstand this, but we start riding two-handed, so we're able to ride one-handed.
Hmm.
But there has to be a foundation through ground school, through the basic riding foundation, so we could be able to ride one-handed later on in our development.
Right.
Because as we start with our halter on the ground, at that moment, we start developing self-carriage, little bits at a time,
Hmm.
so we can be able to go and do things like the later on and ride with our garrocha pole to
Hmm.
a song that we like, and it could look artful, and it could we can create art.
Yeah.
Each one of us feels things different, and that tool is so important because we take the micromanaging of the tools. That goes away because now they have to focus on the garrocha on one hand and being
Right.
able to teach us balance.
Yes.
It teaches us. how much we neglect riding with our seat,
Ah,
okay,
right.
with our balance.
Right.
Our balance is so important to develop straightness in our horse. But we think it's the horses. Sometimes we think it's the horse's obligation that they have to ride straight
Right.
when we're not riding with balance.
Right.
And that's one of the main things. Uh, Balance, having fun with the tool, and not micromanaging
Yeah.
with our hands. That I do use a lot of the classical riding in my clinics
Mm-hmm.
as we
So,
progress. And the
so,
garrocha, it is considered one of the Doma Vaquera, um, and classical riding also.
mhm. Right. That's
Yeah,
great. That's great.
yeah.
I just
Yeah.
had a little image of you with the Gorocha pole with the music, and it's similar to the little boy with his mom's broom uh,
Yes.
dancing.
Now
Yeah.
that you mentioned that, I'm like, oh, well, that's why. That's why I like it. But
Yeah.
I've been always just amazed on the people, from not to disrespect, when I'm riding with the garrocha, and when you have people in Spain and Portugal, and doing some beautiful beautiful things. I mean, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. That's
And now that you mention, oh yeah, I'm the little boy with that little my mom's broom.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's great. So how can people, like, you're traveling and teaching, where is home for you?
Las Cruces, New Mexico. Well, La Mesa, New Mexico, which is within the Las Cruces area or El
Okay.
Paso area,
Okay.
and that's where
Um,
I'm at.
but you're traveling right now. You're in Nevada. You'll be heading home. So if people want to learn with you or learn more about you, how can they do that?
Facebook. That's
Okay.
the only thing that I have right now.
That's great.
And also YouTube. I have some YouTube videos which we're gonna hopefully start back up here soon.
Wonderful. So I'll make sure that those are available for people. I'll put a link in so that they can find you. Um, so I really appreciate you talking with me today. This has been really fun.
Thank you so much.
So that wraps up my interview with Rodolfo. I hope you enjoyed it. It was really interesting for me to go back and listen to it so many months after I recorded it. And I remember as I was talking to him how much of it resonated with me. The part about horses grounding us and the breathing, and basically just making sure that we're addressing ourselves and improving ourselves before we can expect our horses to improve. And it's interesting how when you're in a certain place in your life, certain things will resonate with you. And then months later, after the journey that I've been on with my aunt and losing her, it's interesting how things resonate in a completely different way. And it just causes me to be grateful yet again that people like Rodolfo are willing to share their stories and the power of our stories. So I guess I just wanted to share that with you. And I know that you've probably had something similar in your own life where maybe you've read a book at a certain time and then a couple years go by and you read it again and it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't see this or hear this the first time I read it. So just revisiting things, I think, is the message that I'd like to share. And then just the power of our stories, and that I think sometimes we think that our stories don't matter, and they so do. So I hope you get a chance to share a bit of your story in the days to come, and I hope hearing Rodolfo's helped you in some way. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. I would love for you to, if you haven't already signed up for the newsletter, to sign up for my newsletter. It goes out once a week and shares information about like the podcasts and inspirational, motivational things as well. So there's a link in the notes to sign up for that. There's also a private Facebook group if you're interested in joining people from all over the world that are sharing about their horsemanship journeys. We'd love to have you. So there's also a link for that. So I hope you enjoyed this interview, and thank you for being here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.